Женщина. Со мной происходит что-то странное. Каждый раз, когда я спускаюсь по лестнице, я начинаю танцевать, причем в замедлении. Неужели все дело в том, что я герой рекламы онлайн-кинотеатра? QIWI. Истории, которые удивляют.
Hey, what's up? I'm QIWI here. And this is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. Snapdragon 865, 8 gigs of RAM, a 21:9 widescreen display, triple cameras, a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, an all-glass and aluminum frame, expandable storage, water resistance, wireless charging, Android 10, a high-quality haptic motor, fingerprint reader in the power button, a revolutionary technology, a high-quality haptic motor, fingerprint reader in the power button, a revolutionary technology, thin bezels, no hole punch or notch button, a wireless charging, Android 10, a high-quality haptic motor, fingerprint reader in the power button, a revolutionary technology, thin bezels, no hole punch or notch, and just a clean, minimal, modern form factor. Flagship stuff, right? And that's fine, but technically anybody can build that. But the thing is, this phone also has a bunch of other stuff, unique, really useful stuff that I haven't seen in any other phone. But all of this stuff leads to one question, which is, why don't more people buy these? Like, Sony's had a roughly 0% market share in smartphones for the past couple of years in a row, and I think I have an answer. But first, let me show you what is actually so good about these. So the biggest one for me is this display. So I've mentioned this is a 21:9 aspect ratio, which we've seen a bit more now. It keeps it a bit narrower and more comfortable in the hand, more reachable. And I mentioned the thin bezels. They're not concerned with going all the way to the edges and ending up with a notch or a hole punch or something, and actually lets them keep the front-facing speakers, so that's awesome. But this screen is also 4K, so it is a 6.5-inch 4K screen in your pocket, which is crazy. I remember the first 4K phone I ever reviewed, which was back in college, was also a Sony phone. But yeah, now even in 2020, there's something wild about seeing that 2160p option on a YouTube video and toggling it, and it legit looking about as good as any other smartphone screen I've seen. Also, pro tip, definitely go into display settings and switch to creator mode if you have this phone, which will give you the most accurate color, the best looking videos and photos. Yeah, everything just looks really good. Now, here's something else. It may seem minor, but this phone has a toolless micro SD card and SIM card tray. It just comes out just like that. Now, expandable storage is already awesome, but to go the extra mile on a phone where people may also take a lot of photos and something else. It may seem minor, but this phone has a toolless micro SD card and SIM card tray. It just comes out just like that. Now, expandable storage is already awesome, but to go the extra mile on a phone where people may also take a lot of photos and videos, and to engineer this lever where you can pull the tray out quickly and swap cards whenever you want, all while maintaining water resistance, is actually super impressive. This phone also keeps that headphone jack, so they didn't have to do that. And we all know they didn't have to do that because Sony clearly already sells some of the best wireless earbuds and wireless headphones on the market, but they kept that headphone jack anyway. Good guy, Sony. Actually, speaking of headphones, if you do order this phone, there's a bunch of bundles floating around where they will bundle in their world-class $350 Mark IV headphones for free. For free. This phone has a lot of really nice software features too. Like I said, it's got Android 10 with free. This phone has a lot of really nice software features too. Like I said, it's got Android 10 with Sony's overlay, which is actually pretty close to stock, which may surprise a lot of people. It's a clean launcher with the Google Explorer page next to the side, quick Google search box at the bottom. Not a whole lot of pre-installed apps either, but some nice added stuff here. The always-on display, when it's enabled, will show you the icons for your most recent apps to give you notifications, and they'll actually pulse to let you know which one is your most recent notification and why it's buzzing. There's also easy multitasking on this tall display, and it is smooth and There's also pulse to let you know which one is your most recent notification and why it's buzzing. There's also easy multitasking on this tall display, and it is smooth and works really well. So check this out. When you hit the button in the middle, it brings you to a multitasker for both panels where you can switch to a different app, or you can launch different app groups, so 2 at a time, or quit out of it entirely. It is really well thought out, one of the best multitasking UIs I've used on Android and I'll actually want to use. This phone also has a pretty unique feature with the speakers that I talked about, where it will vibrate the chassis to act as extra bass, where Android and I'll actually want to use. This phone also has a pretty unique feature with the speakers that I talked about, where it will vibrate the chassis to act as extra bass. So it's kind of cheesy, but it also is kind of cool. You turn it up and it literally adds bass from the vibration motor for those lower frequencies. So in songs with a bass line, the phone is literally buzzing in your hand with every bass kick. It's kind of wild. You might want to turn it on or off depending on what you're doing, but that's also not something I've really seen done on any other phone before. And this phone also even has an LED notification light up top, which is rare these days, and an extra customizable button at the bottom light up top, which is rare these days, and an extra customizable button at the bottom that can be used to launch apps or use as a shutter button for the camera. And then speaking of the cameras, this is another area where you'd expect maybe people would want to flock to a phone like this, because think about it, for as good as the best smartphone cameras are, the Pixel cameras, the Samsung cameras of the world, Sony makes all of the sensors for all of those cameras. And then on top of that, Sony also happens to make their Alpha line of cameras, their mirrorless stuff, including the A7S III, which has been pretty much universally praised as a technical masterpiece and potentially just straight up best camera of the year for 2020. So Sony's got camera tech. And sure enough, what do you see? Sony is in fact bringing a lot of the tech from their Alpha camera line down into these cameras on the phone. Mainly the incredible autofocus, and that's what I like the most, but also a lot of manual control. So first of all, if you just take photos and videos in the automatic mode in the standard app, like most people will, you'll get a lot of good stuff. There's 3 12-megapixel cameras, the primary, the telephoto, and then a truly wide ultra-wide, which is awesome. And photos are pretty good. Very neutral, you know, very good dynamic range. Colors are good. Sharpness is okay, and focus is fast. But then there's also the included pro-level photo and video apps called Photo Pro and Cinema Pro. Photo Pro basically shrinks the viewfinder and gives you full-on camera modes and manual levels of control, just like a Sony Alpha camera. It's actually so much control that it requires a bit of a learning curve to get used to shooting it on an entirely touchscreen interface. But there's a lot of stuff here. It's pretty awesome, and it gives you world-class autofocus, object and eye tracking, your histograms, your exposure compensation, metering modes, all of that. And then the Cinema Pro app is even crazier to me. You get wide dynamic range, 4K video with profiles, with adjustable manual controls, ISO control, Venice color science, manual focus, and even focus racking. So you can set 2 different focus points, A and B, and then have the camera smoothly rack between them without hunting. Because, yeah, you're totally making a movie on your phone with this thing. This is next level dedication to enthusiasts. But I think that actually kind of partially answers the question we're considering in the first place, which is, why don't more people buy these? Why don't more people buy and flock to these awesome phones with tons of enthusiast level features? And part of the answer is because enthusiasts really only make up a very small percentage of the overall market of anything, but especially of smartphones. Now don't get me wrong, enthusiast features do sell things sometimes, but if you want that true high level volume of sales, you need to appeal to everybody. And these kind of don't.
Нет, вот это и есть он самый, да.
Хочешь работать в IT-сфере без программирования? Планируешь работать на себя и создавать персональные CRM на заказ? Или мечтаешь автоматизировать свой бизнес без космического бюджета? КП 3.0 – платформа для разработки персональных CRM. Пройдя бесплатный курс за 1 день, вы освоите инструменты для создания персональных CRM-решений без знаний программирования. Регистрируйся на курс бизнес-аналитика и получи уникальные знания в области автоматизации бизнеса. Доступ к платформе КП 3.0 на 3 месяца. Сертификат о прохождении курса. Начни получать новые знания и измени свою жизнь прямо сейчас.
Like for all those awesome camera features I just talked about and manual controls, bit of a learning curve to get used to shooting it on an entirely touchscreen interface. But there's a lot of stuff here. It's pretty awesome, and it gives you world-class autofocus, object and eye tracking, your histograms, your exposure compensation, metering modes, all of that. And then the Cinema Pro app is even crazier to me. Autofocus, object and eye tracking, your histograms, your exposure compensation, metering modes, all of that. And then the Cinema Pro app is even crazier to me. You get wide dynamic range, 4K video with profiles, with adjustable manual controls, ISO control, Venice color science, manual focus, and even focus racking. So you can set 2 different focus points, A and B, and then have the camera smoothly rack between them without hunting. Because, yeah, you're totally making a movie on your phone with this thing. This is next level dedication to enthusiasts. But I think that actually kind of partially answers the question we're considering in the first place, which is, why don't more people buy these? Why don't more people buy and flock to these awesome phones with tons of enthusiast level features? And part of the answer is because enthusiasts really only make up a very, very small percentage of the overall market of anything, but especially of smartphones. Now, don't get me wrong, enthusiast features do sell things sometimes, but if you want that true high-level volume of sales, you need to appeal to everybody. And these kind of don't. Like for all those awesome camera features I just talked about, and manual controls, and Venice color science, this phone also just straight up doesn't have a simple night mode. Like people want to just quickly take a great low-light photo like Pixel's Night Sight. This doesn't have that. The front-facing camera is only 1080p 30. And we all know a growing mass of people care about the front-facing camera just as much, if not more, than the back ones. It's also a 4K 60Hz display, and I bet you could hand this phone to 1,000 people and not tell them it has a 40Hz display, and I bet you could hand about the front-facing camera just as much, if not more, than the back ones. It's also a 4K 60Hz display, and I bet you could hand this phone to 1,000 people and not tell them it has a 4K display and ask them what they think, and you'd probably never get a single person asking if it's a 4K screen. And also, most people who already know how to use and take the most advantage of and really like this super high-end manual control on the cameras, most of those people already own and use their own main mirrorless camera or something like that. So don't get me wrong, this is good for those people, it's an added feature, but this isn't a feature that's going to sell new people. Take a look at this chart. This is Sony's volume of smartphone sales for the past few years. Now obviously this is a concerning trend, falling from nearly 40 million smartphones a year for 2 years in a row, all the way down to just 6.5 million sold in 2018. For perspective, that's about as many iPhones as Apple sells in a week in a strong fourth quarter. So to get back in the game, Sony needs a strong 2019, right? They need to pull out a few more smartphones, get a little bit more variety in there, start appealing to more people, really good phones like the Xperia 1 Mark II, and that should put them back on the map for that is not good at all. And that's because there's one more reason that people don't buy these, even though they're clearly pretty cool and they're pretty good, and maybe they should, and that's because they don't know about these. And if you think about it, that's kind of crazy that the company that makes all these popular mirrorless cameras and this technical masterpiece, oh, and also the PlayStation and all these TVs and everything, that company can't leverage anything to get over 0% in smartphone market share. And from my perspective as a reviewer, it's frustrating because it seems like Sony's kind of suffering from some of the same stuff LG has lately anyway, which is their inability to properly launch a phone to the masses. Like, take Apple, for example. We talk about them a lot, but they're notoriously very good at launching a phone. They'll have an event, then a week later, you can pre-order, and then a week later, they're in the streets. It doesn't take very long. The hype doesn't die. And, you know, OnePlus does this too, Samsung does this too. The good launches go that way. This phone was unveiled in May. May. So that's 6 months ago when it first started showing up, and I just got it last week. So May, June, July, August, September, October. That's a long time for the hype to die and for a very poorly thought out launch strategy. And you know, whether it is poorly thought out or poorly executed, it just doesn't look good, period. And it doesn't look like a priority for your company when it takes that long. Matter of fact, it's taken so long for this phone to come out that its basically successor has already launched. It's already been announced. It's called the Xperia 5 Mark II for some reason. Sony's terrible with names, and we won't even get into that. But, you know, that's a slightly smaller version of this with a 120 hertz display and a little bit of a lower price. And when I go to B&H to try to get my hands on that, well, it's not available till December. So, of course, people don't want to deal with that, especially when you're dealing with expensive phones. You don't want to have your phone arrive the day the sequel is announced. And that's actually bad for reviewers too. Reviewers want to know that when they review a phone, they have all the most updated information. And if you didn't get one in May or June when they were first getting seeded, like I didn't, and you get one now, and the Xperia 5 Mark II just came out, why would I even want to review this phone anyway? People aren't even going to buy it. So that's the frustrating thing. It's crazy that Sony can make such a great, such an interesting, compelling little phone, and there would just be absolutely no desire to share it or buy it or anything. But here's the thing, I'm still rooting for Sony, because I don't want to see this kind of stuff die. Let's not forget, the more competition in any field, the better the products get. And so while that downward curve sort of makes it look like Sony's mobile division is on life support, and we've seen what that looks like in others before, I don't want it to die for both of us. Either way, that's been it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Не говорит вообще, что техника-то нормальная же у них вообще так-то. Думаю, здесь наоборот только. А что вот наоборот это. Да, наоборот, есть наоборот. А, я не мог сказать. Ну ладно, себе так и думаю, что. Ну да, время нет. Да, вот это и есть то самое, да. Ну, наоборот, блин, наоборот. Так это и есть то самое. Ну, наоборот, наоборот, есть то самое. Вот это я и говорю. А что это такое? А что это вообще? Ну опять ничего не двигается, наоборот, когда... Как ты что это такое? Да как так может быть-то? Возняк. Возняк, да. Наоборот, не надо. Эх, я.
If you make melodies like this, but want your melodies to sound like this. Or how about this?
Hey guys. Guys, it's Maria. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hi. I post videos every single Thursday, so you need to subscribe. And speaking of which, I graduated in summer right now, so I do have a little extra time to post a few extra videos every now and then. Not quite ready to commit to a new upload schedule, but you definitely want to hit the notification bell so you stay updated on any new videos that I post. I'm kind of sorry that I'm uploading Rock 2 for the third time, but I'm not really sorry. So in this video, and this is the last Rock 2 video, so relax. I recorded Rock 2 on my baby, the N3X, with Music -1, which is just a recording of the orchestral accompaniment. So this was super exciting for me to do and a fun experience, and I'll talk a little bit about how that went in a second. But I always wanted to play this with orchestra, and unfortunately with everything going on right now, It really wasn't in the books for me, but this was as close as I got to hearing what it would sound like with me playing the piano part and orchestra. So I hope you guys enjoy, and if you want to just skip through my blabbering and get to the recording, you can go to this timestamp. But if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. I actually got this idea from a subscriber, so Christian, if you're watching this, thank you for the awesome idea. He uploaded the second movement of Rock 2 with music -1 on his channel, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll be linking him down below, and I'll be leaving it in the description box and up here. All in all, this took about 2 weeks to put together, including playing around with the recording first, changing a few tempos here and there, and then adding cues for myself so I could stay on beat and with the orchestra. Then taking so many takes, you can't even imagine, to try to get it perfectly, continuously with the orchestra, and then of course editing and stuff like that. So I hope you guys love it or like it. That was weird. Why did I say that? To be honest, even with all the work I put into trying to be together with the orchestra recording, it's not live, so you don't have that communication between the conductor and the orchestra and yourself. You don't have that spontaneity. So I'm just making excuses for myself, but there are more than a few places where I'm not together. So if you guys want to find them, it can be a fun little scavenger hunt, and you can leave the timestamps down in the comments. That's a terrible idea. But I must say, in some places, it actually felt very similar to playing with a live orchestra. So when you're playing with a live orchestra, sometimes you lead, sometimes the orchestra leads. So when the orchestra leads, first of all, they're overpowering you, because how many of them are there and how many of you, right? They're not listening to you, which a recording obviously can't mold itself around you magically. And you kind of feel like, at least for me, you're holding on to the back of a moving truck. Not that I've ever done that, but like that's what I feel like it would feel like. So for those places, it was totally fine and it felt very natural. But where it got weird is when I was supposed to lead. Obviously, when I was working with the recording, I was constantly following the recording, following the cues I made for myself, and I never really got to fully let go. And when I did, I wasn't playing together with the orchestra. So for the whole recording, I was basically trying to make it sound like I was leading and then the orchestra was leading, but the whole time I was following my own cues and the orchestra recording that I had in front of me. So I hope you guys like it. Let's